Blog Talk Radio. The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender, good looking, so refined. Say, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in my mind?
Oh, good evening, everybody. My name is Mandy Goodhandy, and we have a talk show going here. Talk, call in, or chat, or whatever we decide we want to do, because this is our opportunity to vent and share and educate. And my business partner, associate, Todd Klinck, is on here with me.
Hello.
Todd, nice to have you. Poor Todd's been going through a lot regarding the reinvention of our nightclub, and he's done a lot of the stuff himself physically with painting, and so he's been working day and night, and I appreciate that, Todd. I want to say that publicly. You're a great business partner.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. And we are so happy to have, and I know a lot of people, when you hear interviews on television and on the radio and stuff, and they're always so happy and thrilled and pleased, but we, in actual fact, are so happy to have our guest that's going to be on and talking and sharing with us this evening, the amazing Sasha Van Bon Bon. Right, Todd?
Yeah, well, she's a hero of mine, genuinely. Before I knew her, I was borderline obsessed with her. So, as a writer, she's one of my favorite writers, journalists, right? I mean, she's an advice columnist, but it's not just advice column. It's her writing. It's the way she puts her words together and the intelligence of it. So I always look forward to reading her stuff.
And so uncensored and so just her. What you see is what you get with this lady. And it was an immediate bond. It was definitely on my part. When I first met her, I thought, wow, this is a special person. And she just reeks of honesty and rawness. And me as a performer myself, I've been performing for years. And so Todd was mentioning about the writing. Of course, I'm not a great writer, so I don't really, look into that. I know that what she's written is brilliant, and I've gone to see her shows, and she's actually written a lot of her material, most of the material in her performances and her shows, and it's great. And but as a performer, from that angle, when she comes out on stage, it's like there's nothing else going on. There's her. And it's like, and not everyone has that kind of presence, do they, Todd? There's a lot of...
stage presence is something that cannot be taught. I always say that stage presence is an innate gift, and those who have it, you just see it immediately.
She's powerful on the stage. And I've had the opportunity to see a couple of her big performances with the Scandals, and her recent one, the recent one I saw was with herself and Kitty Neptune, and it was a background about how she got into the whole industry with the sex trade and with the burlesque performance industry, and it was just so honest, and the way she delivered it was just fascinating. It was all like dialogue, and she was just so comfortable and so natural, and not a lot of people can pull that off.
Yeah, it was monologues about stripping in Montreal, and her whole time there in the strip club in Montreal. Very interesting stuff.
Yes, it was. It was never ever felt like I wasted my time like I do a lot of times, and Todd knows this about me. I don't go to a lot of live theater. Or performances or concerts and such. I'm very particular on, where I will go, because I'm the type of person, and, this might sound bad, but you know what? I don't feel bad. If I don't like something, I will get up and walk out. Because to me, it's like, don't insult me. Don't insult these people that are sitting here in the audience, because you're wasting my time and I am leaving. I will not watch crap.
you don't want to go and watch people like throw oranges at each other and mime and
if they're doing something, even if it's out of the ordinary or strange or weird or odd, actually I find it interesting, so it's okay. It's not that, it's just if it's delivered badly or if it's delivered dishonestly. And a lot of the times an audience will sit there even though they're in pain and they will tolerate, I don't even know if I want to bring up examples of big musicals I've walked out of, but I really should give examples, shouldn't I, Todd?
Yeah,
Cats, sorry, that went on for years in Toronto, and I finally went to see it. I couldn't. I thought, what is this? I didn't understand what was going on half the time. Everybody was there because it was all kind of, isn't this cool and groovy and great, and people are dressed up as cats licking themselves. And it was like, the choreography was like, as a dancer, I'm looking at the choreography and I'm seeing the same movement over and over and over and over again. It was being repeated. So that's insulting. And then that song, if I had to hear it one more time, it's like it was almost like every 10 minutes. It would be memories all alone and it was like, and I thought, do we have to keep hearing this? And I used to like the song until I saw the show. So anyway, I didn't get that, and I'm sure a lot of people out there loved it, and a lot of people, out there probably have friends in it, but I'm not talking about the performers. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not criticizing some wonderful performers in the show. It wasn't their fault. It was just the concept was ridiculous. In my mind, my personal opinion. So I couldn't, that was it. I watched the first act, and then I couldn't go back in. So that was just an example. And then
I just don't like musicals, so.
Well, yeah. I can get carried away with the fantasy. It's like, I get carried away with musicals. I do enjoy musicals, and they do pull on my heartstrings a lot and such. So I do have fun at them. It's just that one particular musical just wasn't. I just didn't think that it was what people kept going on about, and it's almost like it got sold out constantly because of the hype of it. The fact that he was around for so long. I remember the first debut of Kiss of the Spider Woman. When that musical first came out in Toronto, and I think I've told you this story, Todd, it got panned by the critics. It was brand new. It came to Toronto. I think it was one of the first cities that ever played. I was stunned at how wonderful that musical was. Stunned. I sat there in awe over the whole thing, and it got panned by Toronto critics. It ended up going over to Great Britain. It played in London. And to rave audiences. Then it finally came to New York, and it walked off with Tony Awards, left, right, and center. And I thought, there's something wrong here where people will sit through Cats and go on about how wonderful it is, but actually not realize how wonderful a show like Kiss of the Spider Woman was. And I thought that was fascinating. But it goes to show you, it's personal opinion. But how much of it are we being drawn, by the critics and people saying, oh, you should love this because, you will love it. And how often do we fall for that? So that being said, getting back to what we were talking about, I think that any performance I've seen by Sasha, I've never been disappointed, that's for sure. And it's wonderful. So we're thrilled to have her on here. I don't really like to go on about people's bio and people's backgrounds. I love to hear them tell us, the way they want to identify and the way what they want to talk about. So I think that would be just kind of, to call her up and get her to just, come in and be herself.
Yeah.
I don't like doing all that, with a list of questions. What was the name of your first pet? I better not ask her that. That might be an interesting answer. So we actually have people in the chat room, incidentally enough.
Oh, well.
So I don't know if they're asking questions, but...
All right. Well, should I call?
Yeah, so why don't we call her up?
Call.
And also, Sasha is amazingly has agreed to be our bartender on Wednesday nights at Club 120, at the Goodhandy's events at Club 120. And so she's going to be a regular feature for a while, I hope, on Wednesday evening.
Hello, hello.
Oh, my, there she is, the woman herself. How are you doing, Sasha?
Well, now that I'm on the phone with you, honey, I am so happy. Are we live?
You know, we are live. We're alive. The hills are alive. But it's the feeling is mutual. We were talking before we give you a call about basically how we both obviously admire you greatly.
Obviously.
Is it obviously?
Obviously.
Obviously. I'm getting pronunciation lessons. When I first met you, I think it was at the studio, right, Todd? When we had the old studio, when we were trying to...
Was it for our private screening of Mandy Goodhandy, Hanky Panky?
Oh, but I actually wasn't there when she was watching it, though, but...
Oh.
Well, you left for a moment, as I recall.
Yes, I can't remember why.
Oh, let's think.
What occupation was I doing at that time? I don't know. Did I go up and do
I believe it was a mobile nail salon.
Oh, yes, that's what I had to get my nails done, or I was doing nails.
Something.
Okay. It probably.
Or you were nailing somebody. I can't remember.
There you go. I think it was a client, wasn't it, Todd?
Okay, it could have been, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I ended up over there, but yeah, she showed up with a 6-pack of some kind of Tsingtao beer. And
elegant as always.
Yeah, and we pressed play, and we watched a very captivating video.
Oh, Mandy Goodhandy spanks somebody.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's actually
that old chestnut, eh?
Yeah, no, let's just break that out. Nothing like beer and a good old spanking film.
Really? I mean, that says Toronto to me.
Definitely.
My early days in Toronto, a heady time.
So you were new to Toronto even at that point, right?
No, I came here 14 years ago, and that might have been about 10 years ago. I mean, good Lord, how am I supposed to remember?
Oh, honey, you're same as me. I don't remember dates, years, or whatever the hell's going on.
Who needs to? I think it's overrated.
I agree with you. I love those people that know every single minute of their life. And then I wonder, do you have a life if you actually remember everything? And
well, they just have different brains, you know.
Oh, is that what it is? I would just like to have thought it was something else, but that's fine. You know, yeah, we're all programmed differently, aren't we? Now you're doing the column. When you were doing a column for the I magazine originally, right?
Well, my column first appeared in the Montreal Mirror.
Okay.
Which was 17 or 18 years ago now. Geez, it's 18 now. And then I came to Toronto, and my column was picked up by I Weekly. But, you know, like all things that are independent, they struggle. They're bought by larger companies. The larger companies then decide that if they're not making enough money or they're not worth keeping, then they dispense with them. So I'm in that position where I was once syndicated quite widely and making a fairly good income off my column, and now you know, the papers are slowly being shuttered, and I'm practically destitute.
Wow. We're certainly not going to let that happen.
Well, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, I need my Kiehl shampoo, guys. Seriously.
Yes, I understand totally.
You know,
it doesn't matter what happens. We still have to have our luxuries, you know.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
necessities, depending. But now you're currently with the online with Now magazine.
Yes, I'm online at Now, which is great. I'm still in Toronto. I'm happy about that. And there's another online magazine that started up in Montreal after the Montreal Mirror was shuttered called Cult Montreal. And they have done such an amazing job. Like, so much of the staff of the Montreal Mirror jumped on board with this, and we all have been working for no salaries, hoping that we'll get advertisers. And of course they did, because the Mirror was such a such a vital part of Montreal. And it's so funny, I didn't even realize, you don't even realize the catastrophe of not having a weekly newspaper in a city for transsexual sex workers.
Oh, yeah.
How in the hell do you advertise?
So that was the main advertiser paper for.
Well, what weekly isn't supported by trannies?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
I mean, good Lord, trannies have been paying my rent for 18 freaking years. Can I swear?
Of course. Everyone has that when on the show.
It's not a real radio show. It's just it's
a blog radio. We just play a radio on TV. I don't know if you can do that, but no, you can say whatever you want. And this is why Todd and I do this, is for an opportunity for us to vent and say whatever we want.
Well, good.
Yeah, so please feel free to speak.
Are we going to be taking calls? Can we do that?
You know what? That's totally up to the masses, because we say to people they can call in if they want, if they have questions, if they want to discuss things, but people don't usually, do they, Todd, or do they?
Well, no, not usually. But they can today. Today is a day they're allowed to. Sometimes Sometimes I don't want callers, but today is it's open.
I was going to mention that Sasha was instrumental in Todd and I actually making the cover of I Magazine.
Yes. Well, I had to have that.
Yeah, that was wonderful. It was great. No, that was.
I mean, I have a list of things that I want, and that was one of them, and now I've done that. So.
Well, so you can mark that one off.
You guys posed as a famous magazine cover that is actually above my bed of Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. It's a famous Life magazine cover from 1963.
A lot of people didn't get that reference. It's interesting.
Well, one day they will, Mandy. You'll see. It's just, you can't. Being avant-garde is. It has its small satisfaction.
It was certainly. It was wonderful. I'm not much, as Todd would know, of getting my photos taken. I'm just putting my image out there and not having 100% approval because of my vanity. But I felt so comfortable doing that shoot. And it really, at that point, it didn't matter. I mean, what mattered was that you had done this article on us, and you were putting forth what we were all about. And that was important to get the word out there and get the message out there of what we were trying to say to the city, right? And a lot of people still don't get what we're doing, and maybe sometimes we don't, but because we're here, there, and everywhere. But what it comes down to is people just not being ashamed of sex.
Yeah.
And especially the ones that are out there doing it and then pretending they're not. And they're not fooling anybody. And I find that very surprising. I was going to ask you about some of the people write you letters. What are some of the probably, I don't even know. Do you want to go with the funniest? Do you want to go with the most insane or stupid?
I have to say, every letter I get boils down to one single question. I mean, I have made a living, barely scraping by these days, mind you, but a living answering this question: am I normal?
Yeah.
That's it. No matter what someone is asking you, I want to shoot butterflies in my ass with a toilet paper roll. I would like to snort Crisco while someone is fucking me with a broom handle. I want to have missionary position sex with my wife of 35 years. All people want to know is if they're normal. And this is, in a way it says so much about our ideas around sex, that we want to be normal. And I mean, that's really sweet and everything, but if you go further with that, what people are asking is, am I going to be a social outcast if I do this? Am I going to lose everything if I do this?
It's amazing that we still even think there was normalcy involved anywhere with that. So what puts us in that place, or puts them in that place? Because I don't even think twice about, how I feel about sex. I've certainly never felt like I was abnormal. And but who put that in their head?
You are abnormal for thinking that, my dear.
No, apparently I am. I'm not the norm, apparently. But in this case, that's a good thing. But what is it? Do you think that's a parental? That's the way they were brought up with their parents, or do you think it was a church thing, or do you think it was a peer thing? What do you think's the most?
As far as I can see, it's kind of like a convergence of things. And, I would say that for absolute 100% certain, the religious ideologies that we are raised with, both if we're raised with them very directly or even indirectly, have an enormous impact on our ideas about sex. Mm-hmm. The concept of shame is and sexuality is one that's like one of the top 3 tenets of most world religions is shame around sexuality. Mm. It's it can be cultural as well. There's a series of things that happen, but without a doubt, religion has played an enormous role in effing people right up about sex. And people continue to play out religious sex shame in sex. Mm-hmm. I mean, for heaven's sake, you can't go to a dungeon without seeing a St. Andrew's cross, and who invented that? I mean, the Catholic Church is fabulous for SM gear. They really are.
That's very true, isn't it? And costume.
It really is, and I have no doubt that all of those, people, the people who are the perpetrators of the Inquisition, I'm sure had giant boners while they. That's why they have to have those huge robes, those huge frocks that you can't see the erections they get torturing people. That's why those robes were invented, and you can quote me on that.
You just did yourself. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just quoted myself, but you can also quote me on that.
But
because if people. Yes, Mandy.
Oh no, I was just going to say that they were doing high drag before high drag was being done.
Oh,
yeah. With the long robes and the beads and the embroidery and.
It just seemed very fancy.
It was very lavish, and We have so little to thank world religions for. I think SM, we should be grateful that we got that even,
Yeah, I understand that. It's quite the trip. I was going to mention about, now you've had experience with sex work too, because we've dealt with that subject over and over and over again on the show, obviously, because Todd and I being who we are. I'm getting back into the biz myself.
Good girl.
I know, and you know what? And I've always said, it doesn't matter to me how old I am, how experienced I am. If I feel like going back into the trade, I will go into the trade.
Gotcha.
But of course, in this case, it's dancing.
Is that what you're doing?
I'm doing dancing. I am doing very, very special dances. They're very
right.
They're VIP they're lap dances, VIP dances.
I love it.
Yeah, because, you charge per dance, but the interesting thing about our club, and I've mentioned this before, is the fact that we are a sex club and we have memberships, and I am able to give them sex for free.
Fantastic.
So it's kind of an interesting way of doing it.
It's a very Canadian way of doing it.
Yes, it's you can have
passive aggressive.
No, I agree. It's like you can have X amount of dances, and for that I'll give you a free blowjob.
That's fantastic. And you know what? It's that way of doing things. I mean, of course, we're always circumventing these ridiculous, turn of the century laws around sex work. It's silly, but it calls to mind some stories I've heard of sex workers I believe in Thailand, who were not being paid to give blowjobs. They were saying that they were being paid to give safer sex demonstrations.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
That is very good.
Yeah, because
that's almost as good as the free buffet.
Let me show you how to put a condom on. You know, with my mouth.
Or even more talent, with my vagina.
Yes, I'm very gifted.
But the loopholes that we have, like the people have gone through, for example, the loopholes, it's all about the loopholes. It's like you can't say, I will give you this sex for this much money. So I've heard of a play, I don't know if it was even in Montreal, that they were doing, you paid for a buffet, you paid to get in and you were paying for an all-day buffet for X amount of dollars, and the people were giving you free sex.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it was probably a pricey buffet.
Yes, of course. I mean, it was like, there was probably like just nothing but lobster, gold-plated lobster. But I heard that one, and then I heard it. You were telling me something, Todd, about something like that, where they were trying to get around it by pretending it was something else.
Well, I mean, the thing that strikes me the most about people circumventing the laws like this is that doesn't that kind of effort make it clear that there are some people who genuinely want to do sex work?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why would we go to all the goddamn trouble?
Mm-hmm. And spend all the money
the acronyms and
like all the court fighting, the nonsense and everything, the kind of money it's costing, where you have sex workers out there who are going, hey, I don't mind paying taxes. Just let me do my trade.
Yeah.
We'll give the money back. And the
and the other thing is, I mean, if this is everybody's massive concern, they're not paying taxes. Well, guess what? There are thousands of freelance writers in Toronto who aren't paying fucking taxes either. Are we all up in arms about that?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm one of them.
No, of course not. We have that documented now.
Of course not.
That's what to me. I think that's fascinating. Is that money can be made, put into the economy. It recycles, and it could happen for something with like hundreds of people who don't mind coming forth and going, I'm a sex worker, this is what I do for a living, and here's my money, government. Let's get the economy going. So it's just too bad it has to be there. I'd love to talk about you right now. I'm not sure if you 100% wrote these shows, so please excuse my ignorance. But when you do the Scandals, is it mostly you doing the writing?
Yes.
Okay. And
I would say I do 99% of the writing in that company.
Wow. What was the name of the show I saw with you and Kitty?
Was that Neon Nights, the stripping show?
Yeah, the Montreal stripper show.
Was a lot of that? Were you doing a lot of it off the cuff, or was it written?
Oh, it was all written.
Wow, that's
I don't
a lot
go
of
on
dialogue.
stage. Well, in shows like that, I don't do improv anymore. It's not fair for the other cast people. If I go off book, all of a sudden,
And then they miss cues.
They have cues. They have cues they have to wait for. Kitty is very particular about those sorts of things, because she's a perfectionist.
But the way that you mapped it out was beautifully done. I mean, Kitty was doing all the performance. It's so interesting about Kitty. She almost reminds me of Harpo Marx, a beautiful female Harpo Marx, where she doesn't do a lot of talking.
No.
It's just the beauty of her presence. And so she was doing a lot of the dancing. For people out there that didn't see this wonderful show, Kitty was doing a lot of the pole dancing and the whole work of what the dancer, the burlesque performer part of
played
your
all
life.
The characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was only, I think, one part where you joined in, right?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't that terrible? I wasn't even drinking that night. I should remember at least some of it.
Well, I can't remember it. How are you supposed to?
Okay. But it was, it was great the way it was put together. Though you're telling a story that was, and it's the way you presented the story, because it's always a lot of the theater is hum. Here we go. Okay, all right, we're all acting, and as I'm sure you know, I hate acting. You know, and acting to me is so annoying. But when you were doing your dialogue, though, it seemed very natural.
Well, because it's my story. I mean, it's my fictionalized story, but that's the way it needs to be presented in that context.
But you'd be amazed, and I'm sure you know a lot of people could write the story but go out and act it. And they don't even sound like, you know, it's like they put on this big acting persona. I think this is one of the reasons why Todd and I hated acting in our porn. We didn't like the script because the guys could never get it. And I wish when I looked at a lot of, and still gay porn nowadays, I would love to turn around and go, let's go back to the silent film era, shall we?
Shall we?
Because please, you're bothering me here. It's like these stunning boys outdoing each other, and they're speaking and ruining the whole thing. It's just, oh my God, it's like you're not really the television repairman. You know, and no one is falling for it.
Nobody believes that.
No. Yeah. But I wish they wouldn't do it. And so this is why Todd and I kind of went, you know, that's it. No scripts. And then if you actually watch a lot of our stuff, the solos and everything else, these guys just being themselves, it's so beautifully done.
Yeah.
And they're doing it, not us. They're being them. Yeah. And it's really, really nice to see the reality of it.
We have,
I agree.
We actually have a chat room today, and they're actually talking. And they made so I should be the Robin Quivers here, and you know, cut in and relay one of the questions. Is why is it called sex work? It sounds so unlike pleasure for the recipient. Surely there's an expression that works better for both parties. If someone's a professional in their field, they are considered an expert. Perhaps we should be referring to it as sex experts. That's what him or her thoughts are. And this is a fan of Mandy. He says Mandy is the best. For many of us, sexual discovery is a process, a journey. Most people don't relish the journey. They don't have a passport.
Oh.
Wow, that's a great question. Can I jump in on that?
Oh, yeah, please do, yeah.
The word the term sex work was coined by Carol Lee, also known as Scarlet Harlot, who is a prostitute. I believe she's from San Francisco. And I think she coined that term probably in the early 80s. And I think she did that to make clear the labor aspect of prostitution, because the word prostitution was, you know, the same as dyke, fag. It had a negative ring to it. And so she used the word sex work in order to again, focus on the fact that this is labor, that we are people who are working, that we deserve the title of worker.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense to me.
No, it does. Yeah. I think it's about making it known to everybody in general, including people that are not in the industry that would understand the definition. This is probably the reason. Well, I mean, obviously we have to use the term sex because it is about sex. You know, and the thing is, I think it's interesting to phrase it as an expert, but I wouldn't consider myself that because I don't feel you're an expert in anything unless you've experienced everything. And there is no diplomas that I'm aware of.
Well, I agree with that as well. Mm-hmm. I like all the terms that people use for themselves. You know, I mean, I was listening to your last radio show when you talk about self-identifying and people being people should be able to identify themselves, their own gender, their orientation, and so on. And so I respect whatever person involved in I call it intimate labor. And I appreciate whatever anyone wants to call themselves, whether that's a hooker, a whore, a sex worker, a sex laborer, an escort, a companion, a dominatrix, you know, whatever a person chooses to call themselves is what we should respect.
Yeah, I quite often would refer to myself as a hooker or a whore. That was just my more crass way of. I just felt that's just the way I like to talk. And then
it's also us taking that language back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll use sex work in academic discussions, or just as help educating people stuff, because sometimes you can't just throw the hooker or whore in someone's face because they won't really. Get it.
It also depends on who's using it and how it's being used. I don't mind calling myself a whore because I think it's interesting, but I don't want somebody to yell across the street at me. So I guess if you're being derogatory. But I find
that's precisely it. It is, and it is interesting, Mandy. Whores are interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
Because that sets you apart pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. And, it's the fact of not being ashamed of it. People, I think, are more shocked by that. They're not as shocked as me turning around and going, I'm a sex worker. They're probably more shocked at the fact that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where don't put me in a corner because I will tell you what I do. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but you asked me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to back off and be ashamed. And I think what happens under those circumstances when the ultimate shock is over with, then the educating begins.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that part. I like that part where I'm going, you know what? This is what I am. Meet me. Come and talk to me about it.
Yeah.
I want to know how you think and how you feel about it, and I'll tell you how I feel.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it's really like for me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's like you'll find out that I'm human and you're human, and we just have two different styles here, and which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't judge people who have chosen to go into the priesthood. I don't say, you know what, okay, this, and this. But who should be more shocked here? I find it fascinating. It's like, no, he's in the church and he's part of the church, so I have to accept that.
Yeah.
But you're a sex worker and we don't have to accept that. Okay, what is the difference? Because what I do is considered illegal? Because it's not perverse.
That's pretty much it. No, and it's only illegal when you're selling sex directly. If you're selling it indirectly, if you're selling a washing machine or a pair of jeans using sex, then it's fine. But if you're selling it very directly, if you're making a film about a prostitute, that's fine. If you're taking photographs of prostitutes, that's fine. But if you are one, then we have a problem.
Mm-hmm. The sitting in judgment is one of the things I have a problem with that. People sitting in judgment of other people because I try. We all do it in a certain degree. We kind of prejudge a lot of the times, but we have to start learning to correct ourselves on that and being tolerant. And I was mentioning something about, I don't know how many of our shows that you were kind enough to listen to, but there was one about activism even.
Right.
Who decide to tell you how you should be an activist. And I've had this conversation with Todd, and I'm going, okay, people are calling us activists. Okay, that's fine if you want to say we're activists, but then don't tell me how I should be an activist.
Yeah.
Don't tell me because I don't agree with you and you're an activist, I'm an activist. I don't agree exactly with what you're doing here, but I do agree with this, that means I'm wrong. And that means I can't really be an activist, which is what happened for the Pride thing. And you certainly stepped forward for the Pride thing. I love what you did. You took back the dike.
I did.
You did, and people should know this. That was one hell of a movement you did, and it was interesting because we were almost in separate camps on this one. It was kind of interesting, but that's one thing another thing I have to say about you. You did not judge. I remember you talking to us about it, going, you might want to rethink this. Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
And I remember us going, yeah, we have a reason. And you never judged and you never turned your back.
No, of course not. I mean,
that to me is a real activist,
Well, but my connection with you guys goes beyond that sort of stuff, and I completely respect why you did that. I feel that you deserve the kind of attention being Grand Marshals would put on you, but at the same time, I was very concerned. I was concerned about people turning on you. That was my concern.
Yeah, I know. I know you were.
Because I know how hard you two work.
Mhm. Yeah, we had to really think about that one real long and hard. And there was even one point where I almost turned. And didn't I, Todd? And I went, "Oh, Todd, I don't know. It's like this is big." But we had to do what we believed in. We had to kind of put all the politics that was going on aside, even though we sided with everybody, because freedom of speech is ultimate. But then we had to look at, okay, we want the freedom of speech, but then we're going to be stifled putting forward what our message has to be. Yeah. And to be able to get out there in front of like thousands and if not millions of people and ask for that situation of decriminalizing sex work, that was an important message for us. And so it was kind of selfish, but not, because we were trying to put it forward to all sex workers out there and to teach people that, look, we're sex workers and we're walking proud in front of this parade, and we're not horrible creatures. Look, we're just like everybody else.
Well,
only
hardly.
I was going to say, except of course.
I mean, Mandy, if you believe that.
Yes, well, you could take me home to Mother.
Yeah.
But anyway,
people get themselves very wound up about stuff, and I will tell you something. Organizing that march was no picnic either, all right?
Oh, God, I'm sure.
You know, I mean, you do anything, and people crawl up your ass and bark. It's just unbelievable. It's like, it's amazing to me that people have hours, I mean days and weeks to complain and moan, but they won't go out and put up a poster or help something. You know, their way of being present in the situation is to provide conflict.
Yeah, and they think that's activism, is standing there shaking their fist. And it's not always necessarily. Someone's asking something on here about, in our experience, which cities or countries are the most liberated sexually.
Sasha would probably know that more from your... We don't know that kind of stuff. What do you say, Sasha?
Well, it all depends on what you define as sexual liberation. You know, I mean, we tend to think of a place like Amsterdam as being sexually liberated, but, you know, the sex trade there is legal. It's not decriminalized. It's legal, and that presents its own problems. And it's, you know, I mean, it's become very touristy there, and that there's a stress when the sex trade is there's sex tourism.
Visiting the zoo?
Yeah, when I was in Amsterdam, I saw the women in the windows, I just thought, like, these women are, it's really interesting that the way that they're dressed and the way that they're behaving, they are pandering to what they perceive as the most vulgar North American taste. It was really interesting, you know? And I mean, I think a lot of countries have had various forms of sexual liberation that have been stifled by colonialism, by Europeans going in with religion and so on and just fucking shit right up. You know, there's a lot of things to consider in a question like that. But I will say that I found the thing about sexual liberation in terms of how we define it in a city, it's very interesting. Like, we look at a city like Montreal and we think, oh, it's francophone, there's all these strip clubs there, joie de vivre, sensuality, and so on. But these are all things that a city kind of uses to advertise itself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that truly exists there. It's kind of, you know, sexual liberation in cities has a lot to do with myth-making, right? You know, the myths that we create around a city.
For an example of Montreal, from a gay male perspective, that I found it liberated in a certain way was the fact that in the sort of mainstream village area that the male strippers were all smoking on the front sidewalks as opposed to in the alleyways, and they were all intermingled with the others, and they didn't have, there wasn't as much shame around being a stripper. It was more like, there was a lot more like, hey, yeah, we're strippers, cool. Like, that was good. That was a little tidbit of example that I saw there that was sort of interesting.
Yeah,
when I worked as a stripper in Montreal for, I guess, about 8 years I was there. In the clubs. And, I mean, there was some shame about being a sex worker. There's no doubt about it. It's like sort of community and cultural shame. But, and also if you worked in a nice club, a classy club like Chez Parfait, that was fine. But if you were working at, like, the Chateau de Sex, then it was kind of, it all depended really on where you worked. So there was a classism, like there's classist issues in sex work as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So basically it comes down to...
Are you a sex worker on a corner or are you an escort? These class issues often come into sex work, and people judge you based on the type of labor that you do.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they really, really do. It's very funny. A sex worker who is, say, considers herself, I guess, an elite escort, could be having more sex with more men and, with her own various boundaries around safer sex, and yet she is considered less, and I quote, a vector of disease than a woman who is maybe working on the street, who maybe even has less clients, or is a different, has her own more stringent boundaries around safer sex practices. It's really, we attach issues of shame and class in sex work, I find.
That they're worse than we are because we do this and they're doing that.
Yeah.
That's why I always like to be right up front about the fact that I worked the stroll. I worked indoors and I worked outdoors. And, when it comes right down to it, it's to do with your comfort level and, what you want to do. As long as you're doing it, as long as you're doing it the way, whatever proper is. Is there proper?
Well, it's what makes you comfortable. And a lot of women and men like to work on the street because it's very opportunistic sex work. You don't need a website. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need internet access. All you need is, and I mean, you don't even need a pair of shoes. You just have to hit the street, right? It's very, the what's it called again? The overhead?
Oh, yes.
It's very low. No pun intended.
No, exactly.
Very
and
low overhead, right?
They're quicker. It's in and out, and you don't have to do a lot of romance.
Oh God, the managing when you work as an independent online and you have to book hotels and book your trips and all of this and that and the other thing and do your own screening online and it's a lot of work,
Yeah. You have to be an entrepreneur nowadays, especially with the internet. Since that came along, you become your own business, and you have to be damn good at it.
Yeah.
So there's certainly not saying that you don't become a sex expert in that case. There you go.
Well, there is it's an interesting form of expertise. Like the things that you learn as a sex worker in any kind of category that you work in, they are so interesting in particular, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even just the acronyms that we use in that industry. Johnny at the Y, I mean, for heaven's sake. Multiple shots on goal. Like, Jesus. I didn't need to know this stuff. Yeah.
What is that, multiple shots on goal?
That's when if a person can come multiple times within the hour that they have rented you.
Okay, so the client in the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you're not just going to turf them after 15 minutes if they've come that one time.
That's interesting because that's what I did.
Well, that's
you
what
used
most
to turf
people.
Well, I didn't know in a gentle way, but the thing this is the way I saw it. I saw it as you're playing this game back and forth because of the laws. And I find that the sex workers take advantage to a certain degree, and so do the clients. And so you end up with this little volleyball game going back and forth with wording. So I was trying to explain to them over the phone, this is how much I charge for half an hour and this is how much I charge for an hour, even though it was all totally ridiculous. And so, then they would come over and they'd expect an hour when they'd already came. And so to me, I'm kind of thinking, well, what are we going to do in an hour? What do you want to do now? But, of course, we didn't always have that problem when it came to the type of clientele that would come to see someone, a lady like me, because once they came, they were running out the door red-faced.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Sasha, you don't understand. When her and I were both hooking simultaneously and we were phone buddies all the time in between clients, it's like she would read me all the time. She's like, what are you doing, full love affair over there? Like, just like, because I'd be like, okay, I have a client now. He just buzzed me, and she'd be calling me a half hour later. I'd be like, why are you calling me? Like, I wouldn't answer the phone. I'd be like, why are you phoning me? So, dear, you really should be done by now. I mean,
because he would have to do more social than me, because a lot of the Chico admirers weren't, that's not what they wanted.
No, they just
wanted to get off, and then the guilt sets in, they're gone.
Well, it's about
so
honesty.
Quickly, doesn't it?
It was quick, so it's not as if I was kicking them out. And I got into the point where I actually would invite them in, and I would start with a massage because I knew they were going to get off fast. And I thought, let's do the massage, and we'll just do a little bit of conversation if you want, and we'll get you comfortable. And then, of course, they get off, and it always happens. They're quick.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. 80% of the men that would come to see me were in and out in 10 minutes if I allowed it. So I had to do the massage to make it a little longer so they didn't feel like they were being ripped off.
Yeah.
I would do the shower. I would take them into the shower and clean them. Let's get to know each other better and let me clean the filth. Let me clean the filth off of you because I cannot handle any body odors. Where,
Well, I'm sure not all of them were filthy.
Listen, we are giving away all the tricks of the trade here.
Oh, we haven't even started. Yes, we shouldn't be giving away too much information. You're absolutely right, because we could expand this into future shows, but it's almost time up, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, it flew by.
I know. It really does when you actually have something to say.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. But, it's like, of course, it was a pleasure having you on here. And the good thing about having you on the show is you have your background, that you can talk about so many different things that Todd and I have experienced also. And that makes it interesting conversation, obviously, because we all have similar backgrounds. Does. Yeah, it's like it's kind of.
I want to come on again.
Oh, of course! Oh my God!
I want multiple shots on goal.
You're more than welcome.
Now that we know that term, and
can we call the show "Multiple Shots on Goal"?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
M-Slog.
The next. Okay, so there you go. It's official. The next time Sasha's on, we're going to call that episode "Multiple Shots on Goal."
Yeah, we'll call it that.
Well, I also had another one. I was hosting a night, DJing, that I called Internal Pop. And nobody got that, but you two know what that means, right?
Well, I
figured it out right away. I've never heard it, but...
Yeah, you can imagine it when you're in the biz.
You can imagine when you're in the biz.
Now,
so they would ask for that? That's like a... That's a thing.
Well, I mean, it's just a term that I knew from porn. I haven't done any porn except for one that I did with Bruce LaBruce that I would hardly qualify as porn. But it's a term that I knew from pornography, which was in the more hardcore version. Like, they'll put out two versions of a film, right? You won't know this. Where one of them is hardcore, where, of course, you ejaculate all over the person if possible. And the other one, more for couples, all over them. If you can get the ejaculate all over them, everywhere,
single pore,
and every single pore. But if you for the couples videos, which is more romance, it's the internal pop. It's you come inside the person because that's the romance, right?
Oh,
so that's romantic,
isn't it?
Yeah. I'm learning about romance right here on the phone. It's interesting.
Oh, there's always time to learn about romance, Mandy.
Well, maybe someday, someday I'll know what that is. I think, the people I've met, it's romance is bringing over a flower and a bottle of wine when they come to see an escort. It's like I always found that fascinating when a client would show up, and bless their heart, but I mean, they would show up and they've got a flower or they've got a bottle of wine, and I'm thinking, I'm not your girlfriend.
I'm not very nice. I just laugh at boys when they try to be romantic with me. I'm not very nice with it. I just laugh. Like, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's very cute. But that's just me.
Well, it's nice that they're willing to treat me like a lady.
Oh, isn't it? Oh, dear.
So I guess on that note...
on that note...
Yeah,
we have like about 3 or 4 minutes, and then...
Yeah, we don't want to, expand into another topic, because otherwise it will just ruin our next show. We're going to have to
you don't want to rush me out the door either.
No, I don't.
Well, yeah. You're in on Wednesday. How did you like the other day?
Yes. Oh, yes. Let's touch on that.
Oh, I had a great time. I mean, I won't tell you what I found on the bar.
Oh, on the bar?
No, yeah, don't.
You sure you want to tell me? Because I've got...
Well, I certainly am not going to tell you, Mandy.
Oh, my
but
God.
all I can say is, I wish when people cut their panties off, they'd throw them in the garbage.
Oh. Who was cutting off? Never mind. We won't have names.
Never mind. You don't need to deal with it anymore. It's my problem.
Somebody's panties was on my bar.
Oh, there was panties on the bar. And I just thought, this is me at 44, cleaning up tranny panties off a bar.
One more thing. I can't wait to see the next big show you come out with then. It'll be all about this.
Oh, it's going to be called Tranny Panties. That's what it's going to be called.
I really insist on having a cameo appearance in your next one.
I won't. It will be a cameo, and that's all.
Well, thank you.
I don't need you upstaging me. I don't need you barreling on stage with a dirty martini and taking my show over. And you would.
Oh, I would never do something like that. No, I'll just sit in the corner and behave. But I like the part where you get the dirty martini, definitely.
Yeah, you'll have plenty.
But it's great. So
it was a great night, and I will say, I look forward to meeting people on that night. I just love T-girl admirers. I think they're some of the most interesting and gentle and misunderstood. I mean, I don't know how to put that. They walk in the world with a kind of a dis-ease, I think, because their interest is so maligned. And yet there you are. Well, it is. And, there you are with all these, and there's some beautiful women working.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's saying something when I'm the ugliest person in the bar. Right? It's saying something. But, there was some really lovely. It was I had a great time.
I'm so glad you did. So Sasha's going to be there every Wednesday night unless you decide you don't want to be. We want to love to have you every Wednesday. We want you to have your essence and take over that night and be, make it yours, have your flavor. But also we want to have you in on occasional weekends, right, Todd?
Oh, yeah, she was great at the DJ Black party, too, right?
Oh, for sure.
It was also an extremely sexy crowd.
Yeah, that was.
I wasn't at that bar 45 minutes, and I got 2 girls' phone numbers,
Wow, that's awesome.
I know, it was really, really nice.
I should have dropped by on my night off. There you go. It sounds like a lot of fun. I never have fun in my own club. I should come by incognito.
Of course you don't.
And it's really too bad. I can't hang up my hat, but I'm going to try. Like I said, I'm going to start dancing on Monday nights now, and I'll also introduce the ladies onto the stage and do performances myself. So I'm going to try and kind of have fun.
Yeah.
And see what happens with it. That's all I can do.
I think that's taking less responsibility. I mean, it's like herding kittens with those girls. It really is.
Yeah.
They get started. I mean, they get started, you know what I'm saying, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a monkey cage or something.
Oh, and you know what? And they mean well, bless their little hearts, but they're just not good at following rules. And you know what? I understand it. But, sometimes I don't have enough tolerance. But anyway, that's another subject. But we want to thank everybody for listening, and you can hear this on the archives at some point. And don't forget, we have Club 120 on Church and Richmond. Please come by. And our Goodhandy's events with T-Girls is Monday to Thursday, with the dance nights on Saturday, and the occasional interesting different style shows and events are on Fridays and Sundays. Thank you, Sasha Van Bon Bon.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Todd.
All right, thank you. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Good night.
Okay, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay. All right, Todd, thank you for being on with me, and I'll see you at the club.
Blog Talk Radio.
The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction.